Welcome to Halifax Oasis. Today I'm very pleased to bring to you the town manager of South Boston, Mr. Matt Candland. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I want to start off by saying an observation I made last night, and maybe some of the board won't be too happy with me, but I've just noticed in my coverage of the Board of Supervisor meetings versus I've been to, I think, between zoning and town council, I've been to like 3 of your things now. You guys are so professional, I'm really impressed. Even your agenda looks so good. It's just really nice to see. And I noticed this the very first time I observed you was during a planning and zoning meeting, strategic planning, I think it was.
Okay.
And as things proceeded throughout the meeting, at one point you were like, I think we need to stop, this should be in closed session. It's like out of all those people, you're the only one thinking, hang on, what are we doing here? So that tells me you've got a lot of experience in governance. Is this true?
Yeah, I've been involved in local government for a little over 30 years.
Okay, great. And it's just the way the meetings are run, the way people are introduced, the way you listen to citizens and things like that is just really impressive.
Thank you.
I think the Board of Supervisors could take a huge lesson from South Boston Town Council and your leadership as manager. So, having said that, let's go to your background, because most people have no idea how councils run, how supervisors run, etc. So let's get to know you first. Tell me about where you're from, your family, all that good stuff.
So I grew up in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C., in the D.C. suburbs, and really was raised there my whole life. Went to school in a variety of places, got a bachelor's degree, a double major in English literature and American studies, American history.
Ooh, English literature, why'd you study that?
I wanted to force myself to learn how to write.
Okay.
And so I ended up enjoying English literature, but the original reason was I wanted to force myself to learn how to write.
Who were some of your favorite?
I was my focus really was American literature, 19th century American literature, Mark Twain. So I did quite a bit. My senior paper was on Mark Twain.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I've become a voracious reader.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is attributable to forcing myself to be an English major, and then the more I did it, the more I liked it.
Right.
And now I read like crazy.
What genres do you prefer?
The older I get, more nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I was a little younger, I liked fiction, particularly classics, but now it's mostly all nonfiction.
So when you say nonfiction, do you mean of a historical nature, of a self-help nature? That's a wide...
Mainly history, current events, those kinds of things.
Biographical?
Biography, yeah, a lot of biography.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think my kids and my wife tease me because I get so many books. I think I've got probably well over 1,000 books.
Right.
That I just read and read and read. I love it. So when I'm having a meal and I get a few minutes, I'm usually trying to read something.
That's great. It's a great example for kids too, because nowadays kids don't seem to want to read. What's the last book you read?
I usually have several going. I have one on the Salem witch trials that I'm doing right now. I have one on Ulysses S. Grant and Reconstruction.
That's probably interesting.
It is very interesting. I'm getting ready to start one on some Indian tribes, 19th century Indian tribes, Comanches and a few other, which is really interesting. Empire of the Moon, I think it's called. By the way, I'm just about done with that one. That's an excellent book.
Empire of the Moon?
Empire of the Moon, I think is what it's called. About the Comanche.
Okay, Comanche.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned is just how brutal the relationship was between us and the Indians on both sides. I mean, it was just the brutality. I think to the modern ear would be shocking, the way they handled each other. It was just very brutal. But anyway, so I really enjoy particularly American history, although some European history. Anyway, so I love reading.
Excellent. Now, you said you were a dual major?
Yeah, so
and
American history.
American history.
Yeah, they called it American Studies, but it was it was American history, it involved American culture and the arts and that kind of thing. My wife was an arts history major, humanities major with arts history emphasis, and that's, I think we both have a love for that.
Mm.
And then I have 2 master's degrees. I have a master's degree in public administration and then a master's degree in business administration.
So how do you go from literature and history?
I was planning on going to law school.
Mm.
So those were, to go to law school, knowing how to write and read are kind of important skills. So that was the intention, was going to law school. And I took the LSAT, was all set to go, and I guess to make a very long story short, I was at a Christmas party, a church Christmas party, and the couple across from us was an older couple, and he was a professor of public administration. And as the longer we talked, he said, "Man, what are you planning on doing?" And one thing led to the next. "Have you ever thought about public administration?" I had no idea what it really was.
Right.
And he says, you know what a city manager is?" And I said, "Well, no." And anyway, it intrigued me, and that was really what led to me getting a public administration degree. So I got that first, became a town manager.
Where?
In Maryland.
Okay.
So I was I was very fortunate. So right out of graduate school, I applied for a town manager job in Maryland, in Sykesville, Maryland. It was a suburb of Baltimore. And you almost never get a job right out of graduate school to be a town manager. Usually you kind of work your way. But I got it, and I was not the most qualified person. But I think I just hit it off with the mayor. He was a restoration contractor, so his business was restoring old buildings. And I had a lot of experience with construction, and at the time I was actually finishing the renovation of my parents' house, because my father had a heart attack and they were having to sell, and so they asked me to come up. And so in between graduate school, for about 6 months, I renovated their house, then I applied for the job. Anyway, so we hit it off on construction. That's the only thing I can guess, because again, I know some of the other candidates, and I was not the most qualified.
How old were you at the time?
I was 28.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what was the size of the town?
It was 5,000. It was a little smaller than us here.
Right.
So then I was there for 17 years, which is a really long time for a town manager. The average tenure for a manager is like 4 or 5 years. It's not very long.
Is
So
it really?
yeah, it's not very
Why do you
long.
think that is?
Because it's such a political position.
Mm.
And the manager's not trying to be political, or at least he or she shouldn't be trying to be, but you end up being a scapegoat sometimes for problems that may be occurring in that community.
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
here? I'm new to a lot of this, so I'm ignorant on a lot of things, but would you compare in any way a town manager to a county administrator?
Yeah, they're very similar.
Okay,
Yeah, very similar.
okay,
You're just managing a county versus managing a town.
okay.
But you go get the same education. A county administrator oftentimes has a public administration degree, just like a city manager. So anyway, so I was in Sykesville, Maryland for 17 years, great town. When I first got there, I remember driving up the main street, and it was probably 50% vacancy in the buildings. It was just really down on its luck. And it was kind of the outer suburbs of Baltimore. And by the time I left, it was an extremely affluent community. Now, I'd love to be able to take credit for all that. A lot of it was just good old-fashioned demographic change,
Right.
where housing started being built and a lot of people started moving out there. I think it's really what changed it. But I also think that we did a lot of great things there too. So Sykesville, Maryland, if you look it up, is one of the loveliest historic downtowns in the whole state of Maryland.
What do you feel like you were instrumental in contributing to the progress of
The
the
downtown
city?
revitalization.
Okay,
So one of the things that we did was that was fairly controversial, and I think it's reasonable people can disagree on whether they want to do this or not. It's a historic district. So we had a very intact historic district. All the buildings were still there, because it was not an affluent community. And so typically your poorer communities tend to preserve the buildings because they can't afford doing anything about them. And so in this case, we had a lot of the buildings, and the question was, and there was beginning to be redevelopment. And so some people wanted to begin demolishing certain buildings. So the mayor and town council made what was then a very controversial decision of creating an historic district, and it was a regulatory one. Like, we have a historic district, but it's not a regulatory one.
Explain that to me.
Well, so we have an historic district that allows people to take advantage of historic tax credits. So there's state historic tax credits and federal historic tax credits. So if I do a commercial building here, the federal tax credit is 20% tax credit. The state is 25%. So if I do a building here and it costs me $1 million to do that building, theoretically, if I'm doing all historic renovation, I get up to 45% tax credit on all of that. So I would do $1 million and I would get $450,000 back.
Gotcha.
Changes the economics of historic preservation completely, which is why South Boston created a historic district. But it's not regulatory. So if someone wants to make changes to their building, we don't tell them, no, you can't do that. In Sykesville, we had a regulatory historic district. So if someone wanted to make changes to their building, to the exterior of their building, they had to apply and come before these historic district commission and get a permit and approval for that.
Would that be more beneficial?
This is where the argument occurs. So some people would say, well, you're taking away property rights that I have for that, and they'd be right. Other people would say, well, you're preserving that community and enhancing the property values, and they'd be right. So again, that's why I say reasonable people can disagree on whether it's a good idea or not.
Is that something up for debate here?
Not that I've heard, and I'm not so sure it would be appropriate here.
Why?
I don't think folks would embrace that. I don't think that would be something they would. And in Sykesville, there was a certain group of folks that didn't embrace it either. And I completely respected their position. I don't think they were wrong. It was just how do we want to improve our community? And the elected body at the time said, we want to preserve it. That's our competitive advantage. We can't compete with these sprawling suburban areas with big shopping centers. We're a pretty condensed, compressed kind of town. What's our competitive advantage? Well, it's our built environment. We have this beautiful historic downtown. We want to preserve it, and that's how we're going to improve our town. And it worked, considerably. We also took a former psychiatric institution, it used to be one time one of the largest ones on the East Coast. We had to work with the state of Maryland. We were able to annex it and then redevelop that. That was a great project. We started a town museum. We started our own post office. We completely renovated our town hall, and we did all sorts of things. So a very exciting time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Where was all this revenue coming from?
We got incredibly creative on how we did a lot of our work.
I want to hear all about that.
We did a lot of our own work.
Such
I would supervise construction projects. We wouldn't pay people to do that.
Right.
It was that was the way we did it. And we did get a lot of grants, but mainly it was we did a lot of the work ourselves, and so it was. So if you go online and you go to Sykesville,
How do you spell that?
it's SYKESVILLE.
Okay.
And it was.
Yeah, I will. I'm interested to check that out.
Yeah, so it was.
Was it during this time you got married and had children?
Oh yeah. So I want to show you something here with our.
Okay.
So one of the controversial things was we had to renovate our town hall.
Right.
And it was, pretty controversial because our town hall was an old mansion house, and it was not in the best of shape, and no one would really spend money on it. So that's the town hall there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now you can see that was not what you would see. We restored it back to its original colors, to its original everything, and that's really become the symbol of that town.
Right.
We restored the old train station. It's now a restaurant. So at the same time we were doing that, the demographics were changing. Bigger homes, and now the average household income there is probably over $150,000.
As opposed to what it was before.
Exactly. Yeah. Before it was more of a rural area that I wouldn't say it was poor. It was lower. Although it was lower half income, I think, of what you would find.
So maybe half of what it is now.
Oh, it was probably
Even
a
less.
third of a quarter
Oh, wow.
of what it is now.
Okay.
So the income levels are very high. Now you have a lot of people that work at NSA, work in Baltimore. A lot of them work in DC.
It's commutable?
Oh yeah, very commutable. Well, what they're used to in commutes. It's probably half an hour into Baltimore, probably an hour to DC, but people there do that kind of thing all the time,
Right, right.
yeah.
And there's probably good public transportation.
Not in Sykesville,
Really?
but because remember, it was one of the outskirts. Good highway access, but no, not good. But once you get closer to the cities, it's excellent public
Okay.
transportation.
So, okay, I want to go back just a little bit to during those times when you started your family. How many children do you have?
We have 7 kids.
7?
Yeah, so my wife,
Okay.
yeah, my wife is from Southern California.
Okay, what does she do?
She's done a bunch of different, mainly she's raised our kids.
Well, yeah.
When we started dating, that was one of the things that she made clear, that she wanted to pretty much stay home and raise kids. And she wanted to make sure I was aware of that, and that was kind of the deal. So we,
Right.
for the longest time, we weren't wealthy by any means. You're not going to make a lot of money on government, especially a small town in Maryland.
Right.
But she did creative things, everything from piano lessons to developing curriculum for homeschool people,
Right.
and she even held some of those. So she was kind of doing a variety of things, but mainly she was being a mom. And so with 7 kids over the course of, our first kid came along in 91, and then so starting in 1991, and then our last child graduated high school in, what was that, 2024.
So they're all adults now.
Our last one just graduated high school in 2024.
Wow, I never would have believed that looking at you.
Oh, well, that's very
You're
kind
young
of you.
for
Well, very kind of you.
7 grown
We
children.
started young. So yeah, so we have 7 kids, we have 10 grandkids.
Are they in this area or in Maryland?
They're all over the country.
All over the place.
So from Seattle, Washington to Utah to Pennsylvania to Maryland.
Wow.
So they're all over the place.
Just job related, I'm assuming.
Married people,
Yeah.
but school, job related, things that take you to different places.
Gotcha. All right, so let's talk about post Sykesville.
So I was in Sykesville for, as I mentioned, for 17 years, and so I went to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you've heard of Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
No, is there a big
It's in
city?
central Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
It's a wonderful town. It has Dickinson College. It's a college town. It has Dickinson College. It also has the Army War College, and it also has the Pennsylvania Youth Ballet. So this very dynamic community with all, and it's a county seat as well. So all sorts of things going on. It's probably 20,000+ people or so, and wonderful downtown. I mean, if you just go and see pictures of the downtown, it's really, really attractive. And we also have the Carlisle events. So if you are a car person, you would know Carlisle is where all the big car shows happen.
Really?
Thousands. So it's called Carlisle Events, and they have probably 10 or 15 events per year. One of the biggest car show organizations in the country. Any car guy is going to know about Carlisle. So you mentioned Carlisle. Oh yeah, they have Ford Nationals and GM Nationals and Corvette Nationals and Mopar Nationals and all the car shows you can think of. Spring Carlisle, Fall Carlisle. So whenever those events occur, thousands of people come into the town. So imagine this town that has a college in it, the Army War College, Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, and Carlisle events. And it's just one of these really interesting, exciting, dynamic towns. And so I was brought in there.
As a town manager?
Yes, borough manager.
Okay.
So I was brought in the borough manager for downtown revitalization, because I think they had seen what happened.
Why did you leave Sykesville?
I think it was just
change.
I mean,
Okay.
it was I could have spent my whole career there.
Right.
But what happened when I got to Carlisle was not downtown revitalization. It ended up being infrastructure that had been neglected forever. It ended up being a bunch of personnel things, police dispatch, all sorts of things that were very controversial, but that needed to get done. So on the infrastructure side, our water and sewer was in shambles. I mean, we had wooden pipes in some cases, which is normal. That was back in the 1800s they did. And by the way, interestingly, you can have a wooden pipe underground, and because the oxygen never gets to it, it can function perfectly fine.
Wow.
Now, when you dig it up, it kind of deteriorates very quickly, but it's not ideal. I mean, modern materials are better, but wood pipes were functional, and so sometimes we'd have a water main break, and we would dig up and it would be a wood line.
Wow, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. How
Yeah.
interesting.
So I had to come up with a proposal. First of all, there were some terminations that were involved with personnel in order to get the right people in place. So I had to bring a new public works director, which was very controversial. I mean, all these things, it was a very controversial time. But sometimes that's what the manager's gotta do, and it can get them in heat.
Have a turnover for change.
Yeah, and so, we had to terminate a chief of police,
Hey.
terminate a public works director. I had to close down the dispatch for our police and make it a county dispatch. That was very controversial. I mean, I just about got run out of rail by the police then. Cause it was, cause you have these small dispatch where it was a closed system, technologically not advanced at all. So we really needed to come into the 21st century, and that was challenging. The water and sewer one was over $100 million, but it was gonna be over several years.
Right.
But it had to get done. So we came up with a plan. It was kind of a phased-in plan. The first one was like a 15-year plan. It was gonna be, and they're still doing it. But it was gonna be tens of millions of dollars and ultimately over $100 million. So there's that was going on. Anyway, they changed their form of government. So we went from a borough to a home rule municipality, which doesn't mean anything here in Virginia, but in Pennsylvania that's a big deal. So you go to a completely different form of government. So all of these things going on, and it was, that was a roller coaster ride. So I was there for 7 or 8 years.
But you were hired as a downtown revitalization.
Yeah.
Sounds like a switch and bait to me.
Well, but no, I don't think it was switching. I think it's just what happens.
Right.
When you get into a community, sometimes a community doesn't know what a community needs.
Right.
And so you think, we need to bring this guy in for downtown revitalization. Hey, by the way, I think it was really downtown maintenance, because they already had a great downtown. They were looking for someone who had a lot of experience in downtown revitalization to help continue their downtown revitalization.
And maybe sometimes bringing an objective outsider in is what is going to expose.
I don't think they had any idea about the water and sewer stuff, which was part of the whole controversy.
Right.
So, when you do that, when you fire a chief of police and you fire a public works director and you completely change the dispatch, and I mean, on and I won't bore you with all of it. I mean, there was like a whole boatload of things. You make a lot of enemies.
Right.
So at the end of
you
that,
hung out 7-8 years.
yeah, it was a pretty good
You
run.
must have made some progress in that time.
But then the writing was on the wall. New council came in. It was time to move on. So I moved on to Upper Moreland Township, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, and that was a little over, what, say 30,000 or so. It was probably a little smaller than, say, Danville or so. But it was a suburban area, so it wasn't really like an historic downtown. It was just a big suburb.
That must have been a big change for you.
Well, I mean, Carlisle was not much smaller, but a different kind of town.
What was your title in Upper
Township manager.
Township Manager?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Pennsylvania's got, they've got towns, they've got boroughs, they have townships, but then they got townships of the first class, second class. They've got cities of the first, second, third class. They have all sorts of different classifications. So in Upper Moreland, I was brought in for change. It's kind of funny because they had seen what I had done in Carlisle, and they were like, I guess they thought, well, this guy's got some guts, maybe he can, they had a lot of problems there too,
So in proximity, they were not
Well,
so far apart, if they knew what you had done in
yeah, so it's a couple hours away.
Gotcha.
So from Carlisle to well, no, it's actually, an hour, whatever it is, but it's a driving distance, it's about 2 hours. There, they brought me in because they had some issues they needed to change. Okay, they had problems. So then again, we had to terminate a chief of police. There were some issues going on there. Probably the most controversial one is we had to completely disband a volunteer fire company, which in Pennsylvania, fire companies are totally different there than they are here. And volunteer ones there, I mean, Pennsylvania invented volunteer fire companies. And they're very entrenched in the community. Everyone's got a connection to it. But there were some things going on in that volunteer fire company that were just illegal. And I won't go into detail. But
Well, I can't imagine what that could be. Just like one example that's innocuous.
Creating a pension for yourself.
Okay, all right.
Okay, using funds that, state funds that come to you that are supposed to be used for buying equipment, but you create a pension for yourself.
Gotcha.
Some
Okay.
really deep-seated things that, so that one was also hard. So I got to these ones that were, and then there you have to deal with unions. So we have several unions and everything has to be negotiated.
Right.
So Pennsylvania, all police departments that have more than 3 officers by law have to be unionized.
Right. Okay.
So you can imagine all the issues are there. They have a thing called Act 111, which really sets forth how you're supposed to negotiate and work with police. So it really means you have little control over firing people or setting the budget, or I'll give you a couple examples. So we had an officer that had gotten himself into all sorts of mischief. He had slept around with 3 different women in the community, all 3 of which he had arrested. So there were all sorts of problems with that. Anyway, so we fired him because for obvious reasons. And there it goes to binding. It goes to arbitration. So you can't just terminate someone and it's over. They can appeal it, and it goes to an arbitrator. And then whatever the arbitrator is, that's the answer. So we went to arbitration, big, long, drawn out kind of thing, and they gave him his job back. And so that's the kind of thing. I'll give you another example. City of Pittsburgh. The voters there voted that they wanted to have a residency requirement, that they wanted their police officers to have to live in the city.
Right.
Now, reasonable people can disagree on whether it's a good idea or not, but the people voted for it, and it's totally legal. So when the city went to negotiate the new contract with the police union, they challenged that. They said, we don't want that. Went to an arbitrator changed it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Awful.
Just totally legal. The arbitrator is the closest thing to God in Pennsylvania.
Really?
And so the arbitrator could totally overturn the vote of the people. So that was kind of what you were dealing with. It was unions were very strong. We had, you have police and you have fire and you have the Teamsters and you have, and the problem, Lisa, with that is that it almost by definition creates an adversarial relationship. So the police union become their own organization. A fire union becomes its own organization. The white collar Teamsters becomes their own organization. So you have all these separate organizations fighting for resources. Whereas in a non-union environment like here, you don't have that. So you can just make a decision, hey guys, we can't give you a raise this year. We just don't have it in the budget. Now, while a lot of people would be sad about that, you can legally do that. You can't do that in Pennsylvania. The police can say, no, you can't reduce you cannot not give us a pay increase, and if you challenge it, because you have a contract. The contract says what all of the raises are going to be for the next 3 years.
I understand that, but there's also a protective value to unions. What if you never gave anyone a raise in 30 years?
You're absolutely right. Again, one of those examples of reasonable people can disagree with it.
Yeah.
So the average salary of a police officer, W-2 in South Boston, is something like $60,000 or $70,000. W-2. That includes overtime, all those kinds of things. That's what they take home in a given year. Take a guess what it would have been in upper Morton. Okay. In 2020, so 6 years ago, when we were going to, I had to take the police to arbitration negotiation as well, but so I had to do all the research on the average police officer in Upper Moreland Township was making $150,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. The 3 highest paid employees in the township were police officers, not chief of police, not lieutenant, 3 officers. So you're right. With a union, you do get better pay, that much better pay, because the local government really can't do anything about it. You have to go to an arbitrator, and if the arbitrator wants to be picked, they typically, it slants towards the police, because otherwise they don't get selected.
Right.
There's a whole pool of arbitrators, and you get to select who your arbitrator is.
Right.
So it's a really, in my opinion, a very dysfunctional system, and a system that is going out of control, financially speaking, because you can't control the costs. So one of the things I had to do in the negotiations, I had to project out what would have, so in 2020, if the previous 20 years in 2020 were the same as the next 20 years, so 2040, what would a police officer be making? Okay? Very simple, just kind of very simplistic because it could be higher or lower. Guess what it was? A fully loaded police officer in 2040, if between now and 2040 is the same as before, 2000 to 2020, it would be approaching $500,000 for a fully loaded salary, benefits, etc. That's unsustainable.
Right.
And so that's the problem of the union environment. Is it just in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, they lost 2 businesses strictly because of unionized work, and they moved to Tennessee.
But is this what you're describing as sort of an abuse of a system that was set up to protect people? Is that for that area, or are you saying in general?
In general, Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
wanted. Yeah.
Virginia is not a unionized state.
Right,
It's a right to work state. Now, there's been movement, as you probably heard, to unionize,
right.
and there are pluses to it. You get employees making a ton more money, but the downsides is, at least unionization like Pennsylvania has it, is that the local governments, really the community, can't control the cost. It's a runaway cost.
Right, yeah, well, and like everything, there should be a happy medium, because unions have also protected workers physically. You know, they've been a huge part of OSHA and things such as that. Not just, if we're separating pay, the other benefits.
Yeah, I think, so my personal opinion on unions is, they served a very important role pre-OSHA. Okay, you remember when unions came in, you had sweatshops, you had all sorts of off nights.
Right, that's what I
The
mean.
unions played a very important role for mainly worker safety.
Well, and 5-year-olds in coal mines.
Exactly, all of that, you're absolutely right. Today, they do almost nothing for working conditions, because those are all dictated by OSHA. It's money, it's all benefits and money. Now, if you're the employee, that's a big benefit. I mean,
Yeah.
if I were an employee, I would love to be in a union, because it means more money for me.
Right.
Um,
And it sounds like security, if there's an issue, when it goes to arbitration.
Exactly.
that's-
So that's why it sticks around, is they're a very strong lobby, because I mean, imagine every single police department in the state of Pennsylvania is unionized.
Right,
So they're not getting rid of it anytime soon, but,
right,
and so now as the volunteer fire companies, we're losing volunteers nationwide, left and right.
I've covered that with a lot of the local ones, because their thing is, they're going to have to start, not paying them, but they get certain benefits like healthcare or something.
They're gonna have to start paying them.
Right, and they're not getting any revenue from state or federal, because the line that's been going around in my interviews is, we can't sell pancakes to buy a truck. You know, that's, and people aren't volunteers. They've lost something like 70-80% of volunteers across the nation.
Oh, yeah. So in Pennsylvania, in I think it was 77, they had over 300,000 volunteer firefighters. In I forget when I looked at all, 2022 I think it was, they had 30,000.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Okay, so this gets a little wonkish, but there's a great book, it's a very wonkish book called Bowling Alone. It's kind of a landmark book that people in my circles and academia refer to all the time. It was written by a guy by the name of Putnam, I forget his first name, Putham, a Harvard professor. And the bowling alone refers to someone who's no longer in a bowling league, they're bowling by themselves, okay? And what he does is he looks at organizations all over the spectrum, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Brownies, the Rotary, the Moose Lodge, the PTA, all these different groups. And included in that are fire volunteers. It's all these volunteer organizations.
Right.
And even in 2000, he was realizing no one's volunteering anymore. No one's doing that. And he goes through, and it's uncomfortable, I think, for some sections of town of why. But the reason, there's a myriad of reasons why this is happening. People are much more transient, so they don't get ingrained in a community. They move around a lot more. Not only do they move to further places, but they move more frequently. So they don't, divorce rate went up. So people aren't quite as stable. And typically to have your proverbial volunteer force, you tend to have a very stable population. People are invested in their communities and they have time to give. Okay, that's kind of the anatomy of a volunteer.
Disconnection versus connection.
Yes, that's a part of it. So when you start having transients, divorce, A lot more mothers were working. Whole assortment, youth sports, that just the booming of youth sports, all of the, and a whole bunch of other things. All of these things led, immigration actually played a role. So homogeneous societies, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, it's just what Putnam describes. He says when you have homogeneous, and homogeneous can mean a lot of different things. It, of course, can mean racial homogeneousness, but it can also mean just the way you view families or your view of the world or a company town or something that makes you unified around something. Those kinds of communities tend to have more volunteers. Religiosity went down. That is directly connected. They do these surveys of who gives more to charity, and religious groups always give a lot more to charity. So all of these factors, along with many others, and it's a 1,000-page book.
Well, it sounds like you're describing a little bit in this part tribalism, but aren't we going more toward tribalism?
No, I think there's disconnection is what I'm saying. I think what Putnam would argue is that the more disconnected society gets, the less they're going to be involved in these community organizations.
Right. So the more connected they are, the more they're involved.
Yes.
So, but I'm looking at that connection is, when you say homogeneous, I think tribalism.
Well, I think today the problem when we say homogeneous, we're very racialized nowadays. Everything we think you're a modern person, I'm a modern person. We automatically think, but to other people, homogeneous can mean really it's more of a unified for either it could be unity.
Commonality.
Commonality is a good word for it. We have something in common. Maybe we all work for the same place. We all go to the same school.
And when that disconnects there.
Yeah, and racial is one of them,
right.
But it's only one of them.
Right.
But so divorce, transience, more people working out of the home now, and all those things I mentioned, all of those things lead to less time for people,
right.
Less interest that people want to take, less investment in your community, and that's the problem. And so volunteer fire companies are just going to have to be very expensive because remember all those expenses I mentioned about the police officer.
Right.
The average paid firefighter in Pennsylvania is over $100,000 also. So when you convert from a volunteer fire company to a paid, that's going to bust the bank.
Right.
Now, South Boston, we've had paid for a while. We've got 14 or 15 paid firefighters. Most places are in the middle now of transitioning from a volunteer fire company to a paid one.
The ones I've been talking to are like Oak Level Fire, little out community, Turberville and them. And as far as I know, they're all pretty much volunteer.
Yeah, so
and
again,
they're struggling hard.
Think about it for a minute. What we just said, why are they still intact and the other ones aren't? It's all the reasons. These tend to be communities that are more homogeneous. They know each other, a lot less transient. They're going to last a lot longer in the volunteers than the cities are. Cities have all changed over.
But they're struggling hard.
They are struggling hard because they're facing the same problems we are. All the kids from here move.
Right.
So again, you have these disconnections.
Right.
So whereas all the metropolitan areas, they disconnected years ago, and so they're pretty much you don't have a very strong volunteer core in some of these metropolitan areas.
Right.
The rural areas are a little better. The volunteer fire company in Carlisle, Pennsylvania was radically different than the volunteer fire company in Philadelphia suburbs. Mm. And it's just, I think Putnam is exactly right. The more disconnection you get, the less you're going to get people investing and committing time in their communities.
I'm going to check that out.
It's a wonky book. It's hard to read.
Define what do you mean wonky?
It's a lot of statistics, a lot of data.
Right.
You can get the book. It's like I said, I read it. It's like 1,000 pages. Maybe there's like some YouTube interviews or something. You could get the same the summary of it.
Hey, I got through Atlas Shrugged.
Okay, it's very similar to that. So
I love that book.
But it's not even doesn't have a storyline. It's very wonky. Right. But you read it, and it's like, of course, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it was not as controversial then. I think it's more controversial today because it hits at the core of a lot of things that make people feel uncomfortable. Gotcha. Like, what is our market economy like? I mean, all these workers who are cogs that just get moved around, they never really get to settle into a community, family issues, and all these things that I think make us feel uncomfortable. It's like we don't really want to acknowledge what has happened,
Right.
but we're a far less connected community than our grandparents were.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were, where was this one? Upper Moreland Township?
Yeah, Upper Moreland Township.
Your township manager for how long there?
About 5 years,
Yeah.
and then when our daughter graduated high school, it was time to move.
That was your youngest, I'm assuming.
Youngest, yeah.
So, okay, so when you hit the empty nest, you decided to leave. Is that when you came here?
That's when we came here.
Okay. How did you find here?
You know, I knew, I had looked at a couple positions in Pennsylvania, and I think I could have gotten a position in Pennsylvania that I liked, but I think there were a number of reasons. Number one, we wanted to move closer to my parents. My parents lived in Richmond.
Okay.
And my father is 89 and my mom is 86. They still live, they're still living by themselves and they're doing fine. Mentally, especially, they're doing great. But they're slowing down physically. So I wanted to be, and I come from a family of 10 kids. So I'm one of 10. And so I have a couple siblings in the Richmond area. And then I've got siblings all over the country. And we wanted to move there. We also wanted to move down into Virginia, closer to our kids that then were going to college in a small college called Southern Virginia University, which is near Lexington. Great area, by the way. It's a lovely area. Shenandoah Valley, beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So we want to be a little closer to that. And then I just wanted to get out of Pennsylvania because I was done with the unions. I was done. It's Lisa, you're always fighting. You're always fighting. And that's why I say the structure it's by design, it's confrontational, it's adversarial, and it kind of takes a toll. You just get tired of it. And I think Pennsylvania and some of those unionized states, the way they do unions, I think they are in a world of hurt as time goes on because their pensions, there's no way in the world they can support their pensions. That's already totally underwater on their pensions. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, those kind of old Rust Belt states, they're in a world of hurt and they're going to continue to be in a world because they can't control the costs. And I think Virginia, Maryland, and Maryland was really a southern state before. So those southern states that weren't industrial, the industrial states are the ones that tended to unionize for very good reasons. Michigan a couple years ago went right to work state. And I think what they're going to realize, and California is a big union, but California is a big public sector union. And really, that's all that's really left. The private sector unions are pretty much gone. You've got remnants like into the auto industry, but for the most part, the public sector unions are probably 80% of the strength of unions in the country. And what you find is in those, they can't really control the costs. So the costs in California, Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania, they have these runaway costs. Their budgets are in horrible shape. And until they figure out a way of controlling that cost, I think they're in a world of hurt. They're lovely places. My wife's from California. Pennsylvania we loved Pennsylvania. But I think governmentally, I think they're going to be in trouble. Virginia, I think is very much like Maryland. They kind of grew up together. And their forms of government are very similar. So I'm very familiar with Maryland because I was there for so long. And so this is kind of a deja vu. You get into Virginia and you see a lot of the same kinds of things. Not exactly the same, but very similar to Maryland.
But from a governance standpoint. Now, okay, so you chose Virginia because you had family here and you were welcoming a change in the style of governance.
We love this area.
But culturally, there's a big difference between Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. How have you adapted to that?
Well, I think culture is a big. The old adage from Peter Drucker. I don't know if you've heard of Peter Drucker. He's kind of a business guru, and he has this famous saying, and he's talking to executives, and he says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Okay, so what he meant by that is, in an organization, you have all these ideas. I want to change this. I want to do this. We're going to do this strategically. And all of that is possible or impossible based on the culture of the organization. Changing culture is radically different.
Yeah.
So moving down here, the culture is different. You have to understand the culture and work within the culture. And maybe you can change culture on the edges, but you're not going to completely change a culture, at least not in a lifetime.
So you have to learn to assimilate.
You learn to adjust and adapt to the culture.
Do you feel like an outsider?
I have not been made to feel like an outsider. I mean, people have been very welcoming. I think I realize I'm an outsider, but...
Pause. Something just... There might be a battery or something. Which one did it? Okay, remember where you're at.
Okay.
Oh, yes, this one. Why are you screaming at me? Task in progress. I've never seen that before. Ah, okay. Come back up. Oh, okay. It's just that. All right, very good. Let me double check, make sure this guy's okay. Yeah, excellent. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're good. All right, so we were talking about
Culture.
yes, and I asked you, do you feel like an outsider? And you said no.
I don't. I realize that I am, but I'm not made to feel that way. I mean, people have been very welcoming. I couldn't really ask for a more warm welcome that I've received. I mean that sincerely. No one has made me feel like I'm an outsider. Although, I mean, clearly I know I am.
Right.
Just by interactions, but I don't feel that way.
Okay, are there any little surprises you got moving here? I mean, just simple things like food or events or...
I think there's cultural attitudes, there's, little things that are kind of stereotypical, but they're kind of true. Much slower. People's timelines are not as big a rush to do things. What expectations are for certain things. I'd say those kinds of, people ultimately are the same wherever you go, but I think culturally it's clearly different here than it was in Philadelphia.
Right.
But in many ways it's absolutely refreshing.
Right.
I'll give you just one small little example. So in Philadelphia, and you talk to anyone in Philadelphia, they'll just smile and they'll acknowledge that I'm absolutely right in this. You sit at a traffic light, okay, you're the first one, traffic light. When that light turns green, you maybe have a second, literally, and I'm not exaggerating this. You literally may have a second, and if you're not moving, that person behind you is laying on the horn. Okay?
Yeah.
Not too long ago, I was here and I was at a traffic light, and I was doing what a lot of people do that I shouldn't do. I looked down at my phone. The light turned green. Nothing. And it must have been probably 3 or 4 or 5 seconds is a long time at a traffic light when it turns.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and there were cars there. No one did that. Now that's a courtesy, that's a politeness here that doesn't exist in Pennsylvania. Now some people would say, well, some of that is a show that really underneath there's more of there's bless your heart kind of thing. Where,
right.
Okay, and maybe that does exist, but I think there's a politeness and a courtesy here that does not exist in Philadelphia or other metropolitan areas. Lisa, I can't get my employees to call me Matt. I'm Mr. Candland.
Yeah.
Everyone calls me Mr. Candland. That's fine. It doesn't bother me, although it makes me feel old. But, Matt, I keep telling I stopped doing it. But, first month or two, I was like, you guys can call me Matt. I said, you're making me feel old. And I think it was just in the culture that I don't know if it's my age or position or whatever, but they call me Mr. Candland. I still call the mayor. I don't call him Ed.
Right.
I call him mayor. He calls me Mr. Candland.
Right.
Now, a couple of council members will call me Matt offline.
Right.
But in a meeting, it's Mr. Candland. In Philadelphia, we were all, I don't think I ever got called Mr. Candland. It was Matt. The chairman was, Kevin. I mean, it was less formal. And those are small things, but it sets the tone of the relationship. And I think it's a more formal relationship, more courtesy, more politeness, and there's a lot of nice things about that.
Yeah.
And so when we made the decision we were moving, I actually just started sending out resumes, and kind of where I think I wanted to go, at least initially, was a town called Cambridge, Maryland, which is a resort, kind of a resort area right on the water on the Eastern Shore. And I'm going back to Maryland. It would be nice. I like Maryland. And so I applied for that position, and it was moving along, and I had conversations with the headhunter, the executive search firm, and it was moving along, and then I applied for this. Oh, South, I'd never heard of it. I didn't really even know where it was, but it seemed kind of intriguing. I pulled up the website, and I love downtowns. I love underdog kind of small downtowns, and I applied for it. And what happened, Lisa, is the process just went so fast. And I came down here. I did a virtual interview first, and then an in-person interview. Just boom, 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 boom. And the Cambridge one was going slower. And the more I interact with South Boston, I was like, and I think the thing that impressed me the most was how well the mayor and council got along. Now, to a manager, a municipal manager, that's a really important characteristic. If you've got an elected body that's not getting along, you're going to be on the chopping block at some point. Because when they fight and they can't get along, you become the scapegoat.
Yeah.
And rather than taking, I mean, you've seen this everywhere. So if you have a dysfunctional elected body, they can't get along. Rather than acknowledging that they're the problem, they say the problem is the manager. It's just the way it is. We all understand that. That's one of the casualties of the job. So when you're looking for another job and you find an elected body that gets along very well, you at least know for the next 4 years or so that that's going to be the environment. Now, it can change.
Right.
It changed for me in Carlisle, where it completely flipped. Literally, the council that hired me was completely gone by the time I left.
Right.
In a matter of 7 or 8 years.
Interesting.
So, and of course, that's always one of the things. If you have a new elected body come in and they want change, then the manager becomes the obvious person to move. Because you're showing the public we're changing. Whether it actually makes a difference or not, it's not the point. It's we're changing. So that was what I think impressed me the most was you had an elected body. You could just tell that not only did they kind of like each other. I mean, there was no. That's what I'm looking at is how do these guys get along with each other? Are they functional? Can they function and make decisions? And I was very impressed with that. Cambridge, on the other hand, I knew they had a little bit of a history of dysfunctionality. Actually, ironically, the former manager of Cambridge, who had left and why the job was open, went and was the manager of Lexington, Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the guy I met years ago, he was a manager in Ohio for many years, but he got sick of the politics in Cambridge and left. Anyway, so this process went really fast. And right after the interview I did with the in-person one, which we had over in the old council chambers,
Right.
Literally that day, my wife and I are driving home, and the mayor called and said, we'd like to offer you the position. So it all just, boom, 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 happened really fast. And
Did you hesitate at all, or?
no, not really. Well, I'll tell you the rest of the story, which is kind of funny. So, because Cambridge was trying to get down to their finalists, and I guess they would come up with like their 3 finalists or something. And so I was just waiting to hear about that. The headhunter kind of told me that you're going to be one of the finalists, but it was not official. But he was kind of insinuating that was the way it was going to go, but I didn't know.
Right.
So he called, and I accepted the job. I thought, this is kind of a lot of the things that we want. I love, historic downtowns. I think this is a town where the elected body, I hadn't met the public yet, the elected body seems to want to do things to be better and to get better, and they want to make downtown vibrant. I mean, you could just tell their attitude that they wanted to do that. And that's very attractive to a manager. And so I accepted. The next day, I got the phone call from the headhunter. He says, they're ready to see you. And I said, not interested. And he's like, what? And I told him, and he's like, why are you going, some small town in Virginia? Because this is Cambridge, it was probably in between Carlisle and Upper Moreland in size. It was 20-something thousand people or something.
Yeah.
But it was a resort area. It was a beautiful place. But I don't regret it now, and I didn't regret it then. but it was just ironic how all that happened. So then again, it all happened. I mean, I think from the time I submitted a resume, what, in late April maybe, early May, I started July 1st.
Yeah.
That's like lightning fast.
This was 2 years ago.
It was 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
How was the transition? Now, I know Tom Round. He's a good guy.
Great guy.
How did all that work out?
Very smoothly. Tom Robb, as you say, is a great guy, very capable. He was very accommodating. I mean, he was one of the first guys when I got down and let me know anything I could do to help you. He was not intrusive. He was not telling me what I should or shouldn't do. He just gave me a lot of background information. He's always been a great resource, and he's a smart guy, and was very helpful. Ted Daniel was as well. It was funny because those are two of the guys that came in almost initially saying, look, we just want to introduce ourselves. We're not going to meddle in your business, but we want you to know we're here to help you. And both of them have been incredibly helpful on getting background information, and they've given advice. So they've been, I think it's a great resource and asset having both of them here.
So what was your initial outline, prioritization?
What do you mean?
Well, you've come here, you're going to manage this town, you don't know much about it yet, you've done your research, and at some point you sit down with council or whomever, you got a game plan.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is our priority, maybe we should do that kind of thing.
Right. Well, I think they had their priorities. For me, I think it's important, whenever I've gone to a new job, you've got to spend the first 6 months just to shut up and listen and learn the culture. Learn what the priorities are, what we kind of get a sense of the pulse of the community. So I tried to do a lot of that. There were things we had to do right away. There were 2 positions we had to hire right away, town clerk and the HR position. So we usually I look inward to make sure the organization is the way it needs to be. Because the organization's not functioning well, we don't have the capacity to do anything. Right. So really the first year was spent on focusing on our organization. We had to get a new public works director and new fire chief, those kinds of things.
Because he retired, right?
Just retired, yeah. None of these were terminations.
I was going to say, is this another Terminator job coming in and cleaning up? No, okay.
No, and so a lot of the work has been organizational, getting but understanding that this is not Philadelphia, this is not Maryland. This is its own community with its own set of priorities and values and expectations. And so I've been kind of doing some of those slow. I saw the yard waste thing a year and a half ago. Okay. But you got to do these things, kind of bring everyone along to make sure, the public works director is behind it and everyone's behind it and they realize. But, when I first came in, there's still a number of things that I realized need to happen. But you got to do these things. Especially in this culture, you've got to kind of do them slowly, and you've got to bring people together and make sure you're kind of all going through the doorway together.
Okay, let's talk about specifically now, do you feel comfortable that the organization is stable, good foundation?
We are going to have to replace Dennis.
Right? That's right.
So you're never done with the organization, because things happen.
But does it feel solid?
I think we feel solid, yeah.
Okay, so now check. Next, let's talk about with some specificity about tangible things. All right, for example, you mentioned the groundbreaking of the hotel here, because that hotel's been like a dark cloud over this town for decades, probably since I moved here in 2002. But now you're talking, and I noticed actually at the Christmas parade, there was like a big vacuum sucking stuff out of it or something. Yeah. So something is actually happening there. Tell me about the roof.
So that's the other part. So the organization, the second one, we had all these projects.
Right.
So when I got here, there were all these projects that had started. Okay, and it's easy to start projects. It's hard to finish them. And so the hotel was kind of stalled.
More than once.
Well, when I got here, it was stalled. I think it had been stalled before as well.
Yes.
So it was stalled, and there were problems that our grant was going to run out, and so we've had to work on that. So the last year we've spent trying to get that back on track, getting the investors, the developers, getting everyone kind of marched, getting our tobacco commission grant extended, all those kinds of things. Been a ton of work. but we've got that
But it
on track.
happened.
But we got that on track. The West Side redevelopment project.
Wait, too fast for me, let's
Okay.
go back to the road.
Yeah,
Because there's a groundbreaking tomorrow, but you're not really breaking ground, so what does that mean?
it's the start of the project, really. Groundbreaking typically kind of is just a euphemism for,
Picturing.
yeah, we're starting the project, but it's a redevelopment, so you don't have
Right,
you don't have actually, we do have shovels. When we have a picture tomorrow,
yeah.
we'll all be holding shovels.
What time is that tomorrow?
Is it 3 o'clock?
3, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to get here, I can't remember what's on my schedule, but, tell me about what it's going to be, what your estimated time frame is, and more specifics like that.
So that's about a year and, just say a year and a half project. I think it's like 15 months is what they're estimating, but say a year and a half. And so it should be done a year from this summer.
Okay,
So 2027, summer 2027. And we have an operator. So when they're done with the construction, the operator comes in. It's a joint ownership. NHS, National Hospitality Services, is an outfit out of North Dakota. They own about 50 hotels nationwide. They own actually some of the resort areas on the East Coast, but then they really have them all over the country.
so tell me the relationship between South Boston and this company, like,
Well, it was actually I don't even know how they found them because that was actually one of the holdups was the whole ownership developer
Right.
relationship.
right,
And you had the Britanos that, and then you had some other groups, and some of those fell off, and so that was, I think, one of the real problems is getting a coherent, stable ownership relationship
yeah,
that could work. So I don't remember how it came about, but last fall, so fall of 24, NHS came on the scene, and I don't remember how that happened, but the ownership, there was a couple of ownership opportunities from all over the country. One was over in Danville; those fell through. Then the NHS one came through. So now you have an ownership structure where 82% of it is owned by NHS, and like 18% is Britanos.
Mhm.
So the majority owner is NHS, and they are a proven organization that runs hotels right now. They know what they're doing. The Britanos have not run a hotel, and I'm not exactly sure what their role is in the relationship, but NHS gave me great comfort that you had an organization that knew what they were doing.
So, when you talk about ownership, does the town own part, NHS a part, and the Britanos a part?
We own the building right
You
now.
own the building, okay.
And so without getting all the details, there's a lot of like super in-depth weeds, but the principle is we own the building. Once it's redeveloped, they then have the option to buy it from us eventually.
The town owns it,
Yeah.
but those two have the option to buy it for coming in and managing it.
There's all sorts of details about they got to pay the town of South Boston is loaning $4 million to the project.
Mhm.
The developers are coming in with a lot of money as well. We've got a grant, or we've got a loan from the IRF. Don't ask me what that stands for. It's a Virginia state grant, and Tobacco Commission grant. So all of those sources are coming in to pay this $9.5 million construction project. The total project, I think, is supposed to be about 13 or 14 million. That's after you fit it all out, you furnish it, restaurant equipment, all that kind of thing. So NHS will be the operator. Well, I don't know how they're working out. NHS, the owners, NHS and Bertano, they will be the operators. I don't know how they're breaking that up. But NHS runs hotels. That's why I just presumed they would be the ones operating it.
Right.
It's called the Rook Hotel. I think the name, a lot of people ask about the name. I don't know the background history, but it's a rook as in a chess piece.
Right.
And I guess I don't know chess well enough, but I guess the rook can do certain things the other pieces can't. And so
I
that's,
think he's on a corner too.
he is on the corner, but I think he can go frontwards and go diagonally.
Yeah,
But anyway, so the rook piece has some meaning. I think the Bertano group is the one that came up with the name.
right.
So it has some meaning to the Bertano group.
So how many room hotel is it gonna be?
I think it's about a 30-room hotel.
And there's supposed to be a restaurant on top?
There's supposed to be a restaurant bar
On top,
at the top. The restaurant would be below. I guess they could bring food up if they
Okay.
needed to. They'll have like a dumb waiter.
so an outdoor area,
Yeah,
but the kitchen would be on, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how many rooms did you say?
30.
30 rooms. And we're anticipating it a year from summer. How many people is it going to employ?
gosh, now it's all the construction, so you've got all those guys. I don't know how many people that would be.
And is Burton doing it?
Yeah, Burton is doing
Yeah.
it. I guess when it's, I don't know the exact number, Lisa, but I would suspect if you've got a hotel, you're probably talking 30 or 40 people maybe.
Okay, so it's gonna bring some jobs, it's
Yeah.
gonna bring business. What else is your return on investment?
I think the biggest return on investment is it's a signature building in the downtown that can be a catalyst. So it's an anchor, it's kind of an anchor building. And in a small town, every building counts. And this is, your scale is everything. So in a big city, one building oftentimes doesn't really make a difference. In a small historic town, a single building can change a lot of things, because not only is it just, as a percentage, it's a bigger part of the percentage of the total buildings, but psychologically, it can change things. So here's a little quiz. When you bring someone in from out of town and you're returning from the airport, you probably take them a certain route to show them the best of your community. Okay? So I always use it as tests. Do you proudly take your friend from out of town down Main Street, or do you avoid it? And if it's the former, that's a good thing. If it's the latter, we got work to do.
Right.
And when you start getting signature buildings done, you kind of start more wanting to go show off your downtown. Hey, look at this beautiful hotel. Hey, look at this beautiful kind of thing. Look at this wonderful store. That's where we need to get to. So in Sykesville, for example, or Carlisle for that matter, you deliberately take your friend through the downtown to show them, and they ooh and ah over it and say, oh, isn't this so cute and so lovely? And that's where we want to be.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's some people who feel that way now about South Boston. Yep, I want to take, there's probably some people who don't feel that way.
Right.
We want to get to the point where everyone feels that way, where they feel ownership in downtown South Boston. They're proud of it. And we're not there yet. And we may not ever be perfectly there, but we want to be more there, if that makes sense. So that building is really, it's so important because it becomes really an anchor and a centerpiece and a symbol and kind of a rallying cry. You're going to notice in downtown that the real estate market is going to change a little bit as a result of that building being renovated.
How so?
I think you're going to see the price points of buildings go slightly up. The Itachi one is also going to increase those kind of price points. So, yeah, so that you said, why is that building important? That's why it's important. We're going to renovate Town Hall starting next July.
Oh.
Same kind of thing. I showed you that picture of Town Hall. Talk about transforming people's attitude about their community. A town hall is a symbol. That's what it is. It's a symbol of this is what we think of ourselves. This is like our house. We come here, so what your house looks like reflects you. So when someone comes to Town Hall South Boston, they come to certain conclusions about how South Boston feels about itself. And so Winston Churchill has that famous quote that says, we shape our buildings and then our buildings shape us. Why do they make universities the way they make universities? Why do they make churches and cathedrals the way they elevate? They're symbols that make you want to be better and do better, and do you know what I mean? They move you.
Yes.
And so to a lesser scale, to like a cathedral, buildings move you. So if something is pretty and beautiful, it has a way of engendering good things and good feelings. And when it's,
sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, but if you have like a junky, ugly building,
Right.
it has negative effects on you.
Sure. This here is relatively new.
It is.
Did this begin before or after your?
Right when I got here is when they had finished it.
Okay. Is this something the town purchased? Because I know this was up for sale at one time.
Yeah, the town, I don't know all the background, but the town acquired it for the purpose of doing the council chambers. Before we were in that little space over there.
Right.
So they bought it for that very purpose.
Okay, gotcha. Now, can you tell me about anything else, just because you've got a downtown committee or something, the Tamara Best?
Oh, that's Destination Downtown.
Yeah.
They do a lot of the activities and events.
Okay, so they're not involved with actually getting people like.
They're sometimes
that's more-
involved in that, yeah, but mainly they're trying to track businesses, having special events,
Right.
beautifying downtown.
What are some other projects just for Main Street downtown here?
Well, one of the things that Destination Downtown is doing, we're going to be putting this into our budget for next year, so hopefully we'll get funding for it, is we're going to bring back the flowers. So years ago, downtown South Boston had the flower pots that you hang from the the light posts. It really beautifies a place. Imagine either pots on the ground or hanging pots with beautiful flowers. And during the summer, they're hard to maintain. You got to water them all the time. But so you're coming down the street, you got all these beautiful flowers. It's amazing what that does, just to your impression of that area.
When are you doing that?
When?
Yeah.
Hopefully this season.
This season.
Yeah, so we can hopefully get the money for it, because you got to buy the pots and you got to buy the hardware and you got to buy the flowers and someone's got to maintain it. So I don't know. It may only be for partial season this year, but we're hopefully getting the money in. July 1 is when our new budget starts.
Gotcha.
So we'll hopefully have money to start that. We're constantly talking with potential developers.
Well, because we have some empty buildings here.
We do.
Is there any movement on any of those?
Like I said, we're always talking to people, like 441/505 Main Street, the one on the corner, the three-story building on the corner. We've spoken to a number of potential developers for that. But Lisa, the numbers have got to work, and it gets tricky when you're in a small town. You don't have large buildings. Construction costs are the way they are, where the inflation has gone crazy.
I've been in that building.
Yeah, and your rents are not high. Okay, so in principle, redeveloping a building is just a simple math problem. How much is it going to cost me to buy it and renovate it versus what can I rent it for? Well, if your construction costs are high, and they're getting higher all the time, it's unbelievable how high, and your rents are still kind of low, you can't make those numbers work. So that building on the corner, one of the challenges is they can't make the numbers work. So as a town, we got to the hotel. There's no way in the world you would ever make those numbers work. So the town had to come in, loan some of the money. We had to get grants. That's the only way those numbers work. Otherwise, that's why small towns like this that don't have high rents, that's why it's so hard to get certain things renovated, because you can't make it make sense financially.
But the thing is, that I'm just speaking about like the place that used to be the Beanery. It was Cup of Joe briefly.
Yeah.
Their rent's like $1,300 a month for that place. That seems like a really high rent to me.
Not compared to other places.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, because I've heard people express interest, and they're like, "Oh, I couldn't pay that rent."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll use the extreme example. You get a studio apartment in Manhattan.
Well,
They're like
okay.
$3,000, but it illustrates the point.
Yeah.
It's $3,000. Okay, a studio apartment here would be $600. So that's the principle.
But they're going to be having salaries to be able to afford that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes and no. Like you take it. I'll give you an example. So when I was in Sykesville, and this is, gosh, this is 20 years ago, maybe 20 plus years ago. My wife is from South Pasadena, California. Lovely place. And I think she always kind of wanted to move back. Or at least back then, she wanted to move back there.
Right.
So the South Pasadena town manager position came up. She's like, Matt, apply for the town manager position in South Pasadena. I was like, okay. So I applied for it. Well, I was automatically one of the 3 finalists. So they were going to fly us all out for the interviews. But Lisa, I started just doing the math. At the time, we had like 5 or 6 kids. And I realized the house I would have to buy in California, and what the cost would be. And even back then, it's worse now, but even back then, I couldn't make the numbers. They were going to. So I called them and told them, I said, look, I'm going to have to bow out. I just can't make the numbers work. And they said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, what? They said, what if we pay your down payment on a house? I ran the numbers. Can't make it work. What if we offer you this salary? And by the way, this is just for, I'm a finalist. They haven't offered me the position yet. They were going to double my salary, pay all my closing costs, and talked about doing a low interest loan for my house. I still couldn't make the numbers work, because I was living in a house that maybe at that time cost me $200,000 or $300,000. In California, it would have cost me well over $1 million. And so I couldn't make the numbers work. So so yes, the salaries are more in those areas, but in these high expense areas, I don't know how people in Manhattan and Southern California do it. I mean, I guess the only way you get roommates, you live in smaller places. That's the only.
You could say that right now about our local population and the poverty level. A lot of people are having to live with their parents.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think there's probably it's just different scale. Principle the same.
Right.
Right. You're right. You're right. So it's a challenge. So the construction costs are not radically different here than they are in Richmond. You know what I mean? It just you know, if you were to say years ago, I remember just not that long ago that a residential house, 125 bucks a square foot is what it would cost to build it. You can't do anything for under 200 bucks a square foot now. And when I was leaving Upper Moreland Township, we were trying to consider building a police station. Over $500 a square foot to build that police station. Lisa, you can't make those numbers work. So that's one of the problems we're facing here is that construction costs are very high and our rents, thankfully, are not that high. But to a developer, it's hard to make the numbers work.
What about other projects on here? You've talked about Rogue, you've talked about the corner.
Yeah, so we got the hotel, we got the corner, we got town hall. I think the town hall project is an important one.
Right, the renovation.
300 Main.
When does the renovation start? You said the summer?
July 1.
July after the budget. Okay.
We haven't gone that
Okay.
big, but 300 Main, which is just down the street, at Arch Street, Cross Street, Arch Street. That just finished well, it's just about done. What is it? Can you know Ken Buckley?
Yes, I do.
What's the name of it? Something Point
Realty.
Realty. They just moved into the front there. It's a 300 Main. If you go down the street, the first street is Charles Street, the cross street. The next street is Arch.
Okay.
If you were to make a right next to Paco's.
Oh, that's what's going there.
Yeah.
The point. I saw the renovation of the building.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So
good.
they moved in. They're there now.
Okay.
So Ken and Rhonda are there.
There's a restaurant across the street here that's been empty forever. Peroni's?
Yeah, that's right across from 300 Main.
Yeah, what's happening with that?
I've been trying to work with the owner. I know who the owner is. He and I have had meetings. Right now, he's just asking too much for the building.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
so that one would be another great project. So by the way, this is exactly my point. You're going to see a little bit of inflation because of that hotel.
Because of the rug.
Yes.
Right.
And that's one of the downsides, is that it's not rational. It's the Hitachi 800 jobs is also going to inflate the cost. Because people think, oh, now there's all these people moving in. And of course, we know this is going to happen over time. It's not like next week all these people are suddenly arriving.
Right.
But it will create a little bit of artificial inflation that doesn't help the cause. Because remember, our problem is the cost to construct and the cost to buy. And if that keeps going up, our rents just can't keep up with that.
Right. Okay. Let's move to, you mentioned, I've got to be a little mindful of time now. You mentioned West Side. What's happening there?
That's a redevelopment project. It used to be essentially a trailer park that was really in disrepair, a high crime area, an area that I think everyone, even the tenants there, wanted to completely change. This is before my time, but so the town just made the decision with ARPA funds that are you familiar with ARPA funds? No. COVID money.
Okay.
So it's technically called American Recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially COVID money.
Funds, I remember. Yeah.
And the town got like $7 million from that. And so almost half of it is going to West Side.
I knew there was they had put in new heating units, and I knew there was some renovation going on there.
No, so what's happening at West Side is completely different.
Oh, is it? Wait,
the town has purchased, there's still some trailers up there.
You're talking about the place down here. Okay, I'm talking about a different place.
Yeah.
But it has West in the name. My confusion, sorry.
So West Side, the town has bought, I don't remember all the numbers, but I think there's like 25 trailers that we bought. We relocated those folks in accordance with federal regulations. And that's a big, long, kind of detailed thing. But these folks are taken care of. They're not put out on the street. I think they get relocation costs like up to 5 years.
Right.
So we acquired those, we tore those down, and then we're redeveloping the site. So we came out, we're grading it and installing new infrastructure. Their infrastructure out there was a mess.
Is it going to be like apartments?
No, it's going to be like single family homes.
Oh, okay. How many?
41 lots.
41 lots. Okay. And then you rent the houses out?
Though some will be first time home ownership, some will be rental.
Okay.
So Katrina, who was here last night, Katrina Carter, she's going to get some of those lots, and she's going to build single family. Those will be rentals. And then Earl Howerton, if you know Earl Howerton, he's with Southside, another nonprofit. They're going to do first time home buyer, and I think between the two of them, they're doing like 20 units.
Okay, so explain to me now, who actually owns the entire thing now? The town, right?
The town owns the property.
So you are going to sell lots?
Well, we'll effectively give them to Earl Howerton and Katrina, at least those first 20 or so. And they'll,
Well, not them personally, but their organizations.
their organizations, yes,
Okay.
that's what I meant, yeah, their
Okay.
organizations. And then, because the purpose of this was not to gentrify it.
Mhm.
The purpose of it was to improve the housing. And so those folks that we relocated, they get first choice of coming back in.
Right,
And
okay.
they can rent. Now, some people have already moved on and they're happy we're in their new location. They don't want to come back. A lot of people have very bad memories of that. They don't want to live there anymore.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it was bad.
yeah, that's what I understand. And so, it'll be a combination of people who used to live there and new people coming in. But it will be low-income rentals and first-time home buyers. And then we'll still have another 15 or 20 units. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but they're going to be single-family.
Do you think this is gonna help accommodate Hitachi, or is there another project for them?
No, I think it's a different market than Hitachi. I think,
Well, I'm just thinking of housing in general, so that's gonna be low-income housing, or scaled, or whatever you wanna call it. What other housing projects are going on? Because I think I heard something about accommodating Hitachi somewhere.
so,
That might be a county thing.
well, as you know, Brian Brown and the IDA,
Yes.
they've received some state funds to do that residential project down along 58. Are you familiar with that?
That's ringing a bell, refresh me.
Okay. So if you're driving up to Hitachi,
Mm-hmm.
on the opposite side of the street,
Mm-hmm.
there's land that the county owns that they're going to build, I think, 100 units of housing. It's a combination of, I think there's apartments, I think there's some townhouses. I think.
Okay, I think that's what I heard about.
And that's where they're trying to get that money. They got state funding, all the infrastructure.
Right.
It was going to cost like $5 million to run the water and sewer out there. And getting back to this construction cost.
Right.
Running that infrastructure out there. The position we've taken is we're thinking about this wrong. Okay? And I tell this to Brian jokingly all the time. Brian, if we're looking for housing, I got a vacant lot right across the street from the hotel that we could build 75 units, and the infrastructure's already there. We eliminate $5 million worth of infrastructure costs. We can put that into the building, and we could do that. And the town owns the property. So we're going to be trying to seek funding. I don't know when the next round of that is going to be coming. The same source that Brian got that funding for.
Right.
We're going to try and get that for new construction right across the street from the hotel.
And you've got such a past background in doing that, like you said. That's how y'all say, because I was asking about revenue and one of the other towns you were at.
Yeah.
That y'all did a lot.
So we could take our land, find a developer, partner with that developer, have them build new construction. Lisa, here's the key. And I don't know if I'll be able to articulate this very well. When I first got into the business, the idea of downtown revitalization was we got to focus on businesses and we got to focus on buildings, and if we get those things, the people will come. Okay, if you build it, they will come. And what we've learned now with downtown revitalization is get people living downtown, and the businesses will follow.
Yes, that has been very thematic throughout the strategic plan. Housing, public transportation, childcare, the same things.
Yeah.
That attract
We had it
people to live
opposite.
here.
We had it opposite, and we had, because that mindset was a post World War II suburban mindset. You build it, and they come out to it. Okay, and it worked, I guess, if you want to say it worked. I mean, I think it created a whole lot of sprawl and all those kinds of things, but it worked. And so we were applying that same mentality to downtown. But what people have known for millennia was a community is made up of people. And once you get a community of people, then other things start following, institutions and schools and businesses, and it's not the other way around.
Right.
But for a half a century, we were doing it. Like, let's go build some schools and shopping centers and roads, and then people flooded out there and they moved there. Here, so that's kind of our strategy is we've got to move people downtown, and then the businesses will thrive.
I had a conversation with someone at Hitachi about this very thing. I said, where are you going to get all these employees, especially if we're lacking in workforce training? And he said, well, they're probably going to have to commute from other. So how does that serve Halifax County if you have people commuting from North Carolina or wherever to fulfill these jobs? So I think that's why those topics are very, not controversial, but hotbed topics of the needs to have people living here.
So I think this is one of those ones where we're going to have an honest conversation with ourselves. And the honest conversation goes something like this, at least one of the honest conversations. What do people think when they come here to think about moving here? So when Hitachi has a prospective employee and they bring him or her here to interview for the job and also look around the area, do we have adequate housing? What's the place look like? Do we have adequate amenities for their kids? Do we have rec programs? Do we have these kind of things? Do we have parks? Do we have, what do we have that would attract someone to come here? And I'll say something else that's kind of probably a soft spot. Whenever someone moves into a community, especially nowadays, my wife did this very thing. When they're thinking about moving to a place, mom or dad goes online and they go to a website called greatschools.com or something like it. There's a bunch of these. They all seem to work the same way, which is they have a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is your school is horrible. 10 is your school is outstanding. They go to that. Now, do you know what our school is?
I'm scared.
It's a 3. Okay? If you're mom or dad and you're looking at that, sometimes you don't ever get past that. So I forget the gal's name that used to be the plant manager down at Dollar General, but I was having Amber. I forget Amber's last name. She's since moved on. But Amber was telling me, she's, Matt, I got 7 management positions I can't fill. I'm like, what's the problem? And she goes, I won't use her exact language. She was those stinking school rankings. She says, they're killing me.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard conversation we gotta have. The housing stuff. When I came here, I tried desperately to move into the town.
Right.
I've always done that in the job. I want to live in the community. I couldn't buy a house.
Right.
And I spent months looking for a house. At some point we had to, I was bringing my wife down, we had to move in somewhere. So we just got as close as we could, and I live out on Wolf Trap. So schools, recreation. So let me run you through a thought exercise, which you probably haven't thought about. I went through this with 7 kids, but so mom or dad comes here. They're talking to Hitachi or the headhunter or whoever the person is bringing them here. I have a kid that's interested in baseball. Who do I talk to for that? Well, you go over to Dixie Baseball and you talk to them. Oh, I have a kid that's interested in soccer. Who do I talk to for that? Oh, there's this other group over here you talk to them about, this volunteer group you talk to. Well, I have a kid that's interested in basketball. When you go to the town of South Boston, we've got 18 different groups that are doing our parks and rec. What people think when they hear that is, yeah, this is a little bit shaky. This is not really well run and
Centralized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So most places, what you do is you go there and it's like you go to the county or you go to this recreational authority, for instance, and it's a one-stop shop. These are the offerings. You pay the registration, boom, 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 and you've got this. That's becoming, Lisa, an ever more important thing to families, at least, are these sports. I used to hate it. I call it like the church of the volleyball or the church of the basketball. It's these travel teams where they travel all over the country and you spend thousands of dollars for your kids to play in these sports.
Right.
Now, I can mock it like I'm doing, and I do mock it, but it's real. And people do it, and they're making decisions of where they live based on these sports.
Cheerleading. That's another one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dance. I mean, it runs the gamut. And it's boys and girls. Girls sports has exploded since Title IX, which is what its intention was.
Right.
It worked. But so now you've got families that are spending tons of time, tons of money. I'll give you one example. Our kids were very good athletes. They played collegiate athletes. So we were at a volleyball tournament. My daughter, who was playing volleyball, she's very good. She was all state, very good. But we didn't do all the traveling stuff. We did some of it. So I'm sitting next to this guy, and his daughter, they're from Arizona. His daughter was playing in this tournament game against my daughter's team, and I'm chatting with him. And it turns out he's big into this travel stuff. He's taking his daughter all over the country. He spends on average $3,000 a month with the travel sports.
Wow.
Think about that for a minute. Do you think he's concerned about what the sport offerings are in a community? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's growing. So I realize older people like ourselves may look at it and say, that's not the recreation I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with, you practice down at the school one night, and then you got a game on Saturday, and that's it. That was at least what I grew up doing.
Yeah.
And not so anymore. So schools, housing, amenities, like parks and recreation, in my mind, those are the big three.
Mm.
And so if we want that Hitachi employee to come here and choose to live here, we've got to address those issues.
Right. And I think that is a multiple hot topics with the board in the strategic planning committee, because the recreation is going to reconvene, I think at the beginning of February or something like that. Because they've come up with some, nice plans, but getting them enacted. But the biggest thing I keep hearing from them is revenue. So, all right, I'm digressing. Now, we've talked about the West Side Project. What other up-and-coming things about South Boston can you tell me? Because I live in South Boston. I'm a constituent here, and you're making me feel excited about the future. A lot of people say, it's just turned into a retirement community, but everything you're talking about is to turn that and to keep youth here and to attract younger people here.
Right.
So what else can you tell me is happening?
No, you're absolutely right. Let me just echo what you just said, because it's really the most important point in my mind. Right now, our kids are growing up and they're leaving. And unfortunately, they're not coming back. I mean, it's kind of the anomaly when Ron comes back, for example. But he's coming back years and years later.
Mm.
So he didn't raise his family here.
Right.
So what do you do about that? And again, without rehashing it, I think it really starts with those big three. Okay, schools, housing, amenities. But I think it's also optimism. We've as residents, we've got to have hope and optimism and be positive about our communities, because that spreads to other people.
Mm.
If you say, "Oh yeah, I live in South Boston," it's just because it's dumpy little, okay, or you can say, "It's this cool place. It's got a lovely downtown, great quality of life. We're far enough away from these cities, but close enough. It's wonderful." I mean, you want to see the stars at night. You want to drive around and see, rolling hills and fields of agriculture. Beautiful. And by the way, we've got great schools. We've got great amenities. So the money part. So I'm still learning, but what I've been able to gather is South Boston and really all of South Side was devastated in the 90s. Okay, the tobacco industry tanks,
Texas.
NAFTA
Yeah.
destroys. Okay, so this place is decimated. And I don't think that's too strong of a word. I think economically it's decimated.
Okay, so with all the new and exciting things coming to town that we've talked about, and best way to address the public, we mentioned town halls, and like this yard trash thing at the meeting, y'all talked about how we need to get that information to the public. Tell me more about past, present plans for communication with public and disseminating that type of information.
So this is actually one of the things that caught my attention right away when I got here, is that we didn't have a good way of communicating with the public. And that really happened. I'm trying to remember what the emergency was. There was some, I don't remember what it was now. What it was, a car accident, there were closers. Anyway, there was an emergency. We had no way of communicating, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is bad. Like, what if there were like a real?
Mm-hmm.
So I began working with Scott on this, Scott Simpson, a while ago. I said, Scott, you guys don't have a good way of communicating. We don't have a good way of communicating. Why don't we partner on this? Instead of each of us doing this by ourselves, let's partner together. So we ended up going in on that. Now I'm going to, is it Everbright or what's the name of the, Sarah has been the one taking the lead on. There is a company, we need to find out from Sarah before we go. The name of the company, I think it's called Everbright. It's one of these outfits that does mass notifications.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you ever get those Amber Alerts on your phone.
Right.
And they do other kinds of internet things, websites, they do all that kind of technology thing. And I think it's called Everbright. So the county had contracted with them just to do some of that emergency notification. They were never using it, and frankly, it wasn't very good. The addresses, there weren't a lot of numbers on it. So first thing we did is we need to have an emergency notification system to the public. I'm happy to say we have that now. Because what this company does is you subscribe with them. They have the ability to do mass notifications over cell phones. And we subscribe, you pay a fee, and you're able to get all of these phone numbers. We also I know I'm rambling around a little bit, but when they do an Amber Alert, that goes to everyone's cell phone in that area, whether they live there or not. You could be from Raleigh visiting South Boston, and you're going to get that Amber Alert because you're in South Boston. Someone that's living in South Boston that happens to be at Raleigh at the time won't get it. It's all of the cell phones in this area. That's really what you want. You also, of course, want to notify the person who's out of town, but
And you're saying you have that now?
we do have that now.
I've never gotten a notification.
Well, it's only going to be for an emergency. It's only
Have
for
we had no emergency since you had it?
not to the level what their emergency there is supposed to be like you have a train derailment, it's got a chlorine truck on it, or some active shooter or something like that. So it's just the highest level emergencies. We haven't had any of those. But if we hopefully will not, but if we did have that, time can be of the essence on that.
Sure.
So we do have the ability now to do a mass calling to everyone in the county. Whether they like it or not, they're going to get that phone call
Okay.
saying, get out of here, don't go there, whatever the message is.
Okay.
So that was first.
That's great.
Our first priority is public safety. We got to make sure we can do that. So
Okay.
we can do that now. Jason, over at the county, he's emergency management coordinator over at the county.
I know who you're talking about.
I forget his last name.
I'm blanking,
But Jason, he's the one that runs that. Also, we thought is, wait a minute. If they can do that, why can't we get messages out to people? Now we're not going to send an emergency message out saying, hey, the carnival is this week. That's inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But they have the technology of getting that message out. So you can go and buy a subscription to phone numbers. There are these services that give you phone numbers in a particular area. And they're pretty accurate. They're 80-90% accurate. Some of them are outdated, some of them aren't. We've subscribed with this outfit to do that as well. Now, we haven't started that service. Jason, I think, there's been a few things on their plate that he hasn't been able to deal with it.
Right.
Mainly this whole turnover with Scott. He had to his energies were diverted elsewhere. But we have the ability right now I can do a mass notification to town of South Boston residents, and I can probably hit 60, 70, 80% of them through a text. And it can tell them, or an email, it can tell them, hey, there's the, Fall Harvest Festival is coming up, you're invited to come. Or town council adopts an ordinance. I can send whatever message I want to, which is extremely important. Now, does it hit everyone in the town? No. Right off the bat, there's a certain percentage you're not hitting. There's a lot of people who don't use technology.
Exactly.
So that's one component. It's one tool to get the word out. And so we're going to start using that more. Jason, I think, I just talked to him the other day, and he's like, okay, I'm almost there, and then we can kind of really start doing that. We also have, Sarah has taken the lead, and we're now doing our Facebook interaction. So the town has a Facebook page, and she's sending things out on the Facebook page.
And you have an excellent newsletter. That was impressive.
I'm going to get to that in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
So then you have the Facebook page, which hits a segment of the population. It's not hitting the kids, but it's getting people, probably 30 to 50 or 60, that age group. So that's another component. We have our town council meetings. We have the newspaper. We got folks like yourself that do podcasts. And then you probably already have it, but we did our newsletter. This is low tech, but it's amazing, Lisa. They've done studies on this. In the communities I've been, we always had this debate. Why don't we just do an email newsletter and we'll save ourselves a lot of money? That's true, you will save a lot of your money. But what they've done is they've done these studies that show an incredibly higher percentage of people will read a hand newsletter than an email. Because you take that in the mailbox, you have to do something with it. You actually have to hold it and look at it. Just by virtue of looking at it, some percentage of that group's going to read it. You get an email, boom, junk mail, I'm deleting it. And studies show, this is why people still do newsletters, is that they have higher readership than the digital ones.
And if you put them in doctor's offices and places like that, they're sitting there, they're going to read something.
So we're starting to do that now. We started putting them trying to get in the schools, in the library, we put some of those places like that. Yeah. So I think the idea is if we have a multifaceted, kind of multi-pronged approach, we have the best chance of reaching the most people.
Excellent. What about talking about upcoming projects? Do you guys ever do town halls? Because the Board of Supervisors is talking about it.
You mean like a special work session to be When you say town hall, you mean going around into the community, or?
Or no, you would just open something up to the public and say, look, we're kicking around this idea and want to get feedback from you.
Yeah, we typically do that at a council meeting. They used to have workshops.
But nobody shows up to meetings.
I know.
And that's what's frustrating. You know,
Now,
like
we
I
did
went
have-
to one zoning thing, I was the sole
I
person
know.
there.
We did have for the Riverdale project, we had a decent turnout at that. So I guess it's been a year ago. A year ago, we had to come up with kind of a master plan for that Riverdale area.
Right.
And so we had 3 public meetings where everyone was invited. We sent out flyers. We literally I think we even sent a mailer out to every home.
And you had good turnout.
We had good turnout. We probably had, 30 people, which is a good turnout for a meeting. Now, keep in mind, 30 people out of 8,000 people is not a lot.
Yeah.
But 30 people in a public meeting in a small town is a decent turnout.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame. This is Putnam all over again. This is Robert Putnam. The guy who's bowling alone.
Yeah.
This is what he's talking about. Is that a citizen has a responsibility of doing certain things. We need to do a good job of getting the word out, but the citizen also needs to make an effort to be informed.
True, but being a person on the street myself, the motivation is difficult when they're just trying to work 2-3 jobs, putting food on the
Understood.
table.
But citizenship.
It becomes
But this
a low
is
priority.
actually one of my pet peeves, and I think Putnam would agree with this. Citizenship means something, and if we ever become, I remember when this isn't going to be anything to you, but there was a management theory that came out called it was called reinventing government back in the 90s, and the idea was we were going to treat residents like customers, and it was really this free market approach that we were going to, if we treat citizens like customers, then the customer's always right. We provide all these. And it's totally wrong. They're not customers. They're citizens, and we need to restore.
Partners.
Well, okay, so we need to restore the concept of a citizen is that they are part of the process. We self-govern ourselves. Now, we're not in a true democracy, we're in a representative democracy, but a citizen still plays an integral role. The first one being you vote. You vote and you show up and you're involved in things. Because I can send you all sorts of information, but until you make the decision that you want to read it, you want to participate, it isn't going to mean anything. And so we have the same 30 people showing up at the meetings or being involved in things, so we got to figure out a way of how we kind of get people involved.
Is this part of public school curriculum?
I think it absolutely should be, but
That's what I want to see. Everything I go to, be it a Democrat meeting or whatever, there's no young people there. Because I thought if there was some way you could make it almost like a game, if you're involved and you vote and get this person elected, this would happen. This is the consequence of your action. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somehow to engage, teenagers or young adults.
well, and Thomas Jefferson talked a lot about this. He said, if you don't have an engaged, educated citizenry, this whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
So, we all go to our little circles and we get all of our news in the same place. And so you get your news, I don't know if you do, but you may get your news at a different place than I get. So almost like our premises are all coming from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very dangerous in a free society, because then you get a completely different worldview than I get, and we don't understand why the other is thinking the way they're thinking.
Disconnect.
Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and this is really a nationwide problem, but we really need to restore the importance of the citizen. That a citizen is an educated person who makes their voice heard and it participates in the process. If they don't, they're irrelevant. You know what I mean? And so in a local government, the sad reality is there's like a minority of people who make all decisions.
Yeah.
Literally, but also figuratively. So I realize that the mayor and council are the ones making the decision, but the people who are having input is a very small group.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it was designed.
Right.
The way it was designed is that maybe you can't make every meeting, but you're going to make a lot of them. You're going to be educated. You're going to know what's going on in the town because you're a citizen. You pay taxes. This is your town. You're invested in it. You own it. You're concerned about it. And I think it's Putnam would say this is exactly what's happening. Is people just aren't as interested in their communities. And this is nationwide, by the way.
Yeah.
This isn't just here.
Yeah.
And I think returning with civics to school. I remember when I first started in this industry back in the 90s, I would go to elementary schools and speak. They would invite me to come. I've gotten an invitation in years.
Oh, wow, really?
No, they don't. I mean, most people don't even know what a city manager is, much less how their system works.
Part of why I'm doing this myself. Yeah, exactly, to educate people. Well, that's a great message, and I love it coupled with what you said before about we need to have an attitude of optimism and carry that and show it with us. So let's make this a final note. Do you have any messages for the citizenry of South Boston beyond what you've said already?
One thing I would echo is the grass is not greener on the other side. South Boston is a wonderful place, and I think it's easy to say, things are nicer in Richmond or things are nicer in Raleigh, and yeah, they have some things we don't have. But having come living in metropolitan areas, they don't have close to what we have here. We've got a tight-knit community, or at least it should be a tight-knit community, where it's the level, the tone is down at a human level. Philadelphia, New York, that's almost like inhuman. I mean, humans are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And it creates stress, and it creates angst, and it creates all this. We're at a level, this is a wonderful place. It's beautiful. There's so many positive things about South Boston. So I think the main thing is be proud of your community. Because there's a lot to be proud of. We have nothing to be ashamed about this community. I still have people come and visit me from other places and say, well, this place is lovely. I'd love to live here. And the problem is they can't get a job here. You know what I mean? So it's back to those big three.
Right.
Schools, housing, amenities, I guess a fourth one are jobs. So I think that's the message is South Boston and Halifax County is a wonderful place to live. And I think we just need to realize that and appreciate it and enjoy that this is a good place, great place, and not badmouth ourselves.
Okay, that's a great message too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody for watching our Halifax Oasis, and we'll see you next time.